So this guy from Pennsylvania, I think it's Pittsburgh, roughly, Pennsylvania, he sent out two guns for me to work on. This is one of them. And he purchased this through Amped Airsoft, and basically they just didn't tune it. I told him I wasn't surprised. I've played with the guys at Amped Airsoft, and they kind of just use stock settings. They kind of act like they're all that, and they're running around with untuned LMGs that shoot 20 RPS. Like, you can tell just by the way they sound, they're on open bolt and just stock settings, 20 rounds a second, have not adjusted anything or done any fine tuning. And that's how this was. So it doesn't surprise me that their builds, like that come out of their shop, are hardly adjusted, if adjusted at all. And this thing costed him a pretty penny too. So I told him I am 99.9% sure I can get this thing running fantastically without even having to pull it apart. And I was able to. So this is a Noveke. It has the NSR 15 rail on it, which I believe is a 15-inch rail. I believe it's a 14.5-inch barrel because it stops right here. There is a, what do they call these? The Noveke KX3 Pig. KX3, yeah, is what they call them. Amplifier, essentially, is what this is. It actually doesn't make it too loud. It's actually a pretty quiet setup. There's not too much air going through it. I have the DP fairly low. I'm just gonna make it quick. Going back here, it looks like Strike Industries hand stop, or AFG rather, kind of. I don't know what you want to call those, to be honest, because it's not really a angled grip. It's more of a hand stop, but it's got forward and back. I'm not a huge fan of those, but they're pretty cool. And then on the front here, what is this? This is like a gas pedal or something. Like, I've heard people refer to them as gas pedals, like you can put your thumb up against it, or you can push it against a barrier. That's kind of weird. I've never really seen anybody sport that on an airsoft. The color of it is super cool. On the other side it says Noveke Rifle Works LLC. It's pretty cool. It is a very nice looking gun. EMG pistol grip, and the stock has no markings on it. It's got like an ambidextrous charging handle, these Magpul Emba sights looking copies. They're not really Magpul. He has a, what are the XPS hollow sun on here, or not hollow sun, holographic. Airsoft, of course, that is not real. Now there's also a magnifier in the back here, and this thing is not very good. It's wobbly and it's kind of hard to pull in and out. It's not a, you have to like pull it, flip it over, you have to like pull it towards you. Very hard, very heavy spring. Some of them just flip or have a latch that you push, you kind of pull it and then it flips over. You know what I mean? It's much better than having to pull and tug on it. It's obviously pretty cheap, and I'd probably take that off. I know it's probably for looks, but it's just extra weight. I would take the magnifier off if I were him, but it's totally up to him. The holographic does turn on, so that's pretty cool. Red and green. That's cool. Seems decent quality. The trigger in here is a speed trigger. It's unadjusted. That's also funny. Whenever I put an HPA engine in for somebody, you know, I'll charge 50, 60 bucks, maybe more, depending on the build, but normally 50 to 60 is the average, and I adjust the trigger for them when I install it. So they didn't do that. They didn't even attempt to. I told him about it. I didn't adjust it. I'm gonna leave that to him. You can do it inside of the gun. I told him you just have to Loctite the screws, so if he wants to, he can do that. If you do that, the safety stops working. Right now the safety works, so I don't know if that is some fields require working safeties, which is kind of just stupid, especially for HPA, because if your air is unhooked and nothing happens, it's kind of a built-in safety for HPA when you have the air unhooked. But I'll leave that up to him if he wants to shorten it and kind of void the safety. In terms of settings, I just do what I do best. I have it set for 30 RPS. The field that he plays at does not have an RPS limit, thank God, because that is whack. He has an IGL in here as well. Max Blue Hop Up. I don't know the barrel and bucking. I didn't pull it apart, but it is a F2, and it's the EMG, like Evike Blue, which is pretty cool. And actually, he said there's like a Retro Arms gearbox shell in here, which is absolutely true. It's a blue gearbox shell, and those are super expensive. Not what I would have picked to drop in an engine. Maybe for an AEG, you'd want to use a really nice gearbox shell like that, but any cheap shell should have worked. I'm running 90 PSI. He actually uses the same regulator, a Redline SFR. 90 PSI gets him about 390 with a 0.2, which with 0.3s is about 340. So I told him if you're chronoing with 0.3s, you want to see 340, you're good to go. With 0.2s, you want to be about 390. Now, he said they allow 400. It's one of those fields that doesn't joule creep, or they don't read joules with HPA, so you can kind of joule creep. You know, it is what it is. Some fields around here allow that too, but most do by joules, so it's like 1.55 with 3s. Of course, even with the long trigger pull, you can still spam it. Perfect feeding on full auto. A little bit over hopped. Pretty good though. So as you see there, it shot pretty good. Again, I didn't spend much time on this. I did not pull the gun apart. I just tuned the settings, and it shoots really good. I would definitely recommend 0.3s, and they fed just great with mid caps. I told him to get new mid caps because the mid cap that he sent, it was total crap. The BBs were getting lodged beside each other, and you'd have to like hit it to get it to start feeding. And it did that multiple times. So he's got to get new mags, but mid caps will work as long as he gets good ones.